Hello. I'd like to talk today about how the card's meanings can be stretched and to give us a wider range of ideas than just your traditional meanings that they have. This comes in really handy when you're doing readings. And if anybody's been listening to my YouTubes or watching them, you know that I talk about conceptual blending and how a card reading is like is conceptual blending, a creative thinking technique. And I want to give some examples of what I'm talking about here, and then we're going to go into some cards and show you how the card can distort into other meanings you never saw before, and how they could be useful. If we look at the Hubble telescope, this was a project that was, when this came out, there was a think tank for NASA that was involved with this project. And I'm not too sure what their elements of their projects, the questions that they had were, but I'm sure that they had some type of creative consultant situation there where there was probably a big whiteboard, and this person stood in front of that whiteboard, and the rest of the team, the rest of that think tank, would be coming up with ideas here. So I took and made this example of what it might have been something like this. We have 4 positions for the Hubble telescope. The purpose of the telescope: launch outside the Earth's atmosphere to look into space. How are we going to navigate this telescope? Position 2. Through computers or satellites or things like this. Position 3 is how we're going to focus this thing to look light years away. And position 4 is how we're going to power it. So nuclear power or solar power or some other type of power that we could use here. So these are 4 positions that I thought might have been useful. And the Hubble telescope was almost given up on. They almost got rid of the whole idea because of one position, one of those elements. How are we going to focus this telescope? How are we going to focus a telescope to look light years away? A telescope focuses by elongating or contracting in. Going longer or shorter is how it focuses. But in order to look that far away, this thing would have to really extend out, probably a ridiculous length to do, so they couldn't use that. So if I was a creative consultant involved in this, and let's say I told the think tank, okay, we're stuck on position 3, focus. Think of things you find in the bathroom. Things you find in the bathroom. And do any of these things have an attribute that will help us with this question of focusing the telescope? Well, one of those people that night took a shower, and they were in their room taking a shower, and they were adjusting the shower head. And they noticed that the shower head would oscillate. It would open up wide range of water to a direct stream of water. It would open and close. And this person thought, well, attributes of something in the bathroom, specifically this shower head, the way this works, might work for adjusting the focus of the telescope. The Hubble telescope became a success because of making an association between a shower head and focusing the telescope. That's how they came up with that. That's called conceptual blending. Today we call that conceptual blending. It's a very effective way to find answers to things that we didn't see before. So making associations to things found in the bathroom to focusing a telescope in space. We ended up with the shower head that worked, and we had our answer. Conceptual blending. Another example of that our government did, the United States government, was an air-to-air missile. I think this was in the 60s. And it was either the Pentagon or the Navy. I think it was the Navy, actually, for their aircraft, on their aircraft carriers. They wanted to find a way of being able to shoot a missile from one aircraft to hit another high-speed aircraft. So the purpose, to be able to take down another aircraft, an enemy. How we're going to design this missile is position 2. I have position 3 is accuracy, and position 4, what type of an impact. Well, again, 3 of these elements were things that we could figure out, but the one that we didn't really know is how we're going to be able to aim this missile. Position 3. Aiming a missile from one high-speed jet to hit another high-speed jet is not going to be an easy thing to do. And they were stuck with that. And the head of that think tank told everybody to think of things you find in the desert for position 3, accuracy. Things you find in the desert that might help us aim an air-to-air missile to hit its target. You find sand, you find sun, camels, cactus, rattlesnakes are in there. Well, they looked at the rattlesnake, and the typical rattlesnake in the desert is called the sidewinder. And the sidewinder rattlesnake senses its prey's body heat, and it strikes the body heat. It buries itself in the sand, and when something walks by, it senses the body heat, and it springs out and attacks. And it just follows the sensing of the body heat on what it attacks. And they thought, well, what attributes does this have that will help us with this missile? And they came up with the first heat-seeking missile because of the rattlesnake. And that first heat-seeking missile was called the Sidewinder for that reason. That's called conceptual blending, taking something that has nothing to do with the question, like things you find in the desert, to help us with an air-to-air missile, and combining attributes that something might have that will help us with our question. This type of thinking forces us out of rational thought and puts us in a imaginative, intuitive type of thinking that allows us to come up with new ideas. The mind naturally will work that way, to make associations, to connect the dots and find similarities to what we're looking into that will be helpful. So I thought I'd bring up those 2 examples of conceptual blending before we went into the cards. In my first book, Genius of the Tarot, what I did as far as the meanings of the cards is I gave 3 definitions. The first definition was called traditional, and it was pretty much in line with other sources out there. And then my second definition was called slight shift. And a slight shift was basically another viewpoint of traditional, just to show you you're not locked into just the 2 or 3 sentences. You could have other meanings here. And so that expands your range of ideas. And then my third definition was called quirky. And quirky was fun to write. It was just taking, this only works with tarot decks with images on them. It wouldn't work with the Tarot Marseille. But it works well with the Rider deck, which is what I wrote the book with. And quirky was just taking the image and looking at things in there that you find something you never saw before, and making associations from that to your question. So if you look at quirky here, I have the Empress here, and this is right out of my book. This is how the cards are laid out. This is how the book is laid out for each card. And so quirky, I'm seeing the Statue of Liberty here, only she's sitting down. The scepter is her torch. How can you associate the Statue of Liberty or other national monuments to your question? And that's something you never really see with the Empress card. You would never think of her that way. But national monuments, they have a lot of history. Maybe some of them are named after famous people. There's a lot there to look into as far as ideas that might be helpful with your question. Just like looking into things found in the bathroom for the Hubble telescope helped focus this telescope, or the example I had with the Sidewinder missile. And then down below that I have random word associations. How do you see this card as representing creativity? And what word associations can you make with fertile? This type of look at the cards' meanings was, I thought was fun to do. And it really brought out different aspects of the cards that I never saw before myself until I looked into it. Another example here is the Eight of Pentacles. They all have quirky meanings to them. And some of them are funny. They'll make you laugh. And then others are just, wow, I never saw that before. So the Eight of Pentacles here I have for quirky. I'm seeing the craftsman's right arm holding that hammer as the Arm & Hammer baking soda logo. What associations can you make between baking soda and your question? Baking soda has a lot of uses to it. And that Arm & Hammer logo of that arm holding that mallet this card reminded me of that. So it's just another idea, something you would never see with the cards before, and you're not going to find in a traditional meaning, but it's just an extra range of ideas that you can get, and sometimes these are very useful ways to see the card. And then random word associations I have. How do you see this card as representing awareness? What word associations can you make with learning? So this card representing a key word like awareness, and making word associations with another word, like here I have learning, is also a way of fanning out new ideas into what you're looking into. Here I have the Page of Pentacles. And the Page of Pentacles here, as far as quirky, I have here, I'm seeing this page looking at his new hat in a hand mirror. What associations can you make between mirrors in your question? Mirrors reflect, and they're portable. They're come in different sizes. They're fragile. So there's a lot of different things you could look into as far as that. They allow us to see ourselves. And then for random word associations, how do you see this card as representing a new path? What word associations can you make with position? What type of a position are you in right now? Or what position do you want to go into? Next I have the Five of Wands. And the Five of Wands here is a bunch of people fighting with sticks. And I'm seeing this as a bunch of campers trying to figure out how to put up the tent. And these are tent poles, and they're all arguing about which way they go. So what associations can you make with camping equipment to your question? And then the random word associations I have. How do you see this card as representing change? What word associations can you make with conflict? Next I have the Queen of Wands. And the Queen of Wands reminds me of the way she's sitting there in that throne, and she's looking to her left. And in front of her is a cat who's just sitting there very nicely, almost like posing. And it reminded me of her in a pet show And the judges are about to make their choices on first place, and she's one of the contestants. And she's waiting to hear if her cat won first place. So I'm seeing this woman who has entered a pet show with her prize cat, hoping to get the blue ribbon. She is looking over at the judges as they are about to make their choice. What associations can you make between pet shows and your questions? Or you could even look and say, well, pet supplies in your question. Anything to do with pets in your question. How do you see this card as representing patience? Random word associations. What word associations can you make with silence? She looks like she's not saying a word. She's waiting to hear what they got to say. Next I have the Page of Swords here. I just thought I'd throw a few of these out here to show you what they're about. Page of Swords here I'm seeing this page as a baseball player standing at the plate, a left-handed baseball player, and that sword is a baseball bat. He's at the plate, and he's waiting for the pitch to come. Sort of like bases are loaded, bottom of the ninth, and this is your guy. I'm seeing this, I have here written, I'm seeing a left-handed baseball player standing at the plate waiting for the pitch. What associations can you make between the game of baseball and your question? Or you could even say any sporting events or any sporting equipment. If you really want to go into it, you can really open up a wide range of things. Random word associations. How do you see this card as representing a new path? What word associations can you make with compass? I don't even know where I got that. Maybe the wind blowing in the background. But compass is a good one, sure. Your mind will start drifting into other ideas. Lastly, I have here, the last one I have here is the Five of Cups. And you have this guy in this long cape, and it reminded me of Batman without his mask. What associations can you make between the Caped Crusader and your question, or for that matter, any superhero? What powers do they have that will help you? Anything there that will help you with your question, if you had those, or if you can figure out a way to get that as it pertains to your question. Random word associations. How do you see this card as representing change? What word associations can you make with purge? So, and I'm not too sure why I put purge in there, but that at the time felt like a good word to use. You also see on this that I have a left and right hand page for each card, and in the left hand side I have the typical keyword meaning that I use for that card under the 5, change. And on the right hand side I have an alternative keyword meaning. Here I have resignation under the 5 there. So I just thought I'd bring this up to you. I wanted to show you that you can see, this gives you ideas for something new besides just your traditional meanings of the cards. And they're fun. And this kind of thing works just like the Hubble telescope found an answer, or the air-to-air missile. And there's numbers of other examples I could tell you, but I'm not going to go into. And that's that. So this is the way I have the definition set up in Genius of the Tarot, A Guide to Divination with the Tarot Cards, my first book. Well, I hope you like this, and look for your own things of what you see in these cards. I guarantee you'll get some laughs. It's a lot of fun, and it really helps sharpen your imagination, and that also sharpens your intuition. So thanks for watching, and I hope you like this, and Keep throwing cards. Bye.